Hey, Buff fans! Troy and I are back with another episode of the CU Sports Report podcast. Arizona away on the road in Tucson. I was there, and it wasn't hot, and it turned out to be a fantastic 34 to 7 rout against the Wildcats. And this week, it's the Bearcats. There's a lot of cats. The Wildcats again, and then the Bearcats this weekend. And the University of Cincinnati looks to be a pretty well-rounded team. Both Colorado and Cincinnati are 5-2, and I think both of us are looking for a complete game. This is going to be a game that they're going to have to dig deep, and they're also going to be tested once again. I think Arizona was a nice cruise in the desert, and this time it's going to be a late night battle in Boulder. And with those late night kicks, something crazy always happens. So maybe in overtime. I don't know what I'm going to call, but we'll get to it. But I have CU winning. When it's rewind, I was in Tucson, sitting there in the press box, and I was like, wow, Colorado is beating the brakes off of this team right now. Slowly but surely, they just didn't allow Noah Fafita or Totori McMillan to do anything. The defense played incredibly well. Shedeur Sanders had 398. Oh, that was total offense. 250 yards passing, 148 season high rushing yards. Charlie Offerdahl got some snaps there. It was to the point at the end of the game, those second string guys were getting some action, and it was good to see. This is a team that Colorado could beat, even though Obama didn't call it. The Obama comment was so funny after the game. Really
He's with
balanced.
he's
Yeah,
doing his job.
I know. You never know what we're gonna get with Coach Prime, and that was a really good press conference. But balance on both sides of the ball. They recorded 7 sacks, which is a season high, and they haven't done that since I believe Washington State in 2004. One of them. I need to live podcasting here, kind of digging deep in my empty brain of mine, but enjoyable game. And Arizona did not stand a chance on both sides of the ball. When you went back and watched the film, as you do every week, thank you for doing that. What did Colorado really capitalize on, and what did you see from the film?
Yeah, I'll start on offense. I thought this was Pat Shermer's best plan of the year. I was really impressed with what Pat Shermer did. I think that he's starting to kind of build some momentum. He's starting to break some tendencies. He's starting to get a little bit more creative with the offense. I liked some of the wrinkles that he was able to throw in this one. They ran the ball a lot more. Obviously, you mentioned their best day on the ground of the year, using a little bit more 12 personnel this time as well. They put Savell Smalls, and it ended up being Morgan Pearson after Sam Hart went out with an injury. But they ran the ball pretty well out of those two tight end looks. They were able to have some success with that. They ran the ball. They did almost all zone stuff in this game. I've talked before about how they've been mixing it up a little bit with some more gap scheme stuff. This game was pretty much all zone, but um, Shermer kind of sped up the process a little bit. One of the problems they've been having is they run a split zone where the line all zone blocks one way towards the tight end, and the tight end comes across the formation and kicks out the defensive end on the other side. And Savell Smalls had been having trouble getting across the formation in time, and it was kind of clogging things up in the backfield. So what Pat Shermer did in this one was he started Savell Smalls out in the slot and put him in motion, so he gets a running start, and that really cleaned things up. And they had a lot of success with that concept. So that was one wrinkle that I liked. The other one that I thought was really, really good was the Draylon Miller touchdown. This is a play that you see in the NFL a lot. The Chiefs have kind of made it famous over the last couple of years with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid. But CU does a lot of this. They've been doing a lot of this kind of modern triple option where there's a give read or there's a keep read for Shedeur Sanders, and instead of a pitch man like you would traditionally have, like when you watch Army, Navy, they would have usually it's LeJohntay Wester flying across the formation out into the flat on just a little dump off pass. He scored a touchdown against UCF on that. So what they did in this game is Pat Shermer had a little bit of a wrinkle off of it. Is Draylon Miller came kind of underneath. There wasn't a give read; it was the flat read, the Shedeur keep read, But the third read was Draylon Miller kind of coming underneath on that little shovel pitch, and they scored a touchdown off of it. So that was a really nice wrinkle in the red zone to help them get to the end zone. But overall, I thought it was a really good day for Pat Shurmur. The other thing on offense, the offensive line was really, really good in this game. Really, really good. Um, Obviously, in the run game, 148 yards on the ground, but Shador Sanders was pressured 5 times in this game, 5 times on 36 dropbacks. That is unheard of for this CU group. He only took 1 sack. It was his first dropback of the game, ironically. Um, so his last 35 dropbacks, he wasn't sacked and he was only pressured 4 times, which is pretty amazing. And then LeJohntay Wester is just really he's this is 101 analysis here, but every time that I watch the Buffs now, I go, LeJohntay Wester is such a helpful player. He's such a good player. He's kind of become Shador Sanders' guy. He's kind of become their chain mover on third downs. And obviously he'll split some of this with Travis Hunter when he's back fully 100%. But when they need 7 yards, when they need 10 yards on 3rd and 6, on 3rd and 10, that's who Shador Sanders is looking for. That's who Pat Shurmur's drawn up the plays for. LeJohntay Wester has kind of emerged as that guy who I think is gonna get a lot of targets from here on out.
Yeah, he's been really effective with his yards after catch. It's like maybe a short pass, and then he's able to get those first downs and 127 yards, which is a season high for him on 8 catches. I think everyone was eating. Everyone was eating in Arizona on offense and defense. And Isaiah Augusta got the nod as the starting running back, and this weekend he will once again get the nod because Michael Welch and Dallin Hayden are kind of dealing with some injuries, so the rotation's a little bit banged up. But overall, pleased with what they were showing on both sides of the ball. I agree with what you said. I think Pat Shurmur got a little bit more creative and went outside of the bounds of what is maybe more predictable for them, just prioritizing the pass. But I think we see it every game how much the offense opens up when the run game is included, just even a little bit more. And this game was another good example of that. Defense, I mean, Travis Hunter too, he was unavailable in the second half, but that didn't that didn't stop Colorado from holding Arizona from scoring. And when you look at Arizona, their playmakers are Noah Fafita and Torrey McMillan, and they did a really good job getting into the backfield and just giving Fafita a really hard time. He did have a big 24-yard scramble, but they weren't able to score that entire game. Their red zone defense was on point, and most of the time Arizona wasn't even able to get into the red zone. It was just such a clean performance with high pressure from the edges, and Keaton Wade got 2 sacks, someone that we haven't really seen a lot this season, who was working off an injury, and he got his first action for the first time in a very long time. I don't remember his last game, but it was at Kentucky when he saw some defensive action. So good for him. Also, he mentioned on Tuesday that he is redshirting, but the coaches are playing him strategically within those 4 games just to get him some action and then see what is in the future for him later. But 7 sacks is something that Colorado hasn't seen in a long time. Maybe it was Arizona's offensive line, but what made it so effective, the pass rush and the pressure last Saturday?
Yeah, so it was interesting because the plan coming in, we talked about it, everybody talked about it. Everybody knows what is at the top of the scouting report when you play Arizona, right? You got to slow down Ted McMillan. That is priority one. And with Travis Hunter kind of in and out, even before he left the game, they were limiting him on defense. So you couldn't really just man him up. And everyone was like, what are they going to do? Are they going to double? Are they going to rotate coverages? Are they going to do, And Robert Livingston's plan to slow him down had nothing to do with the coverage. CU was pretty vanilla in coverage, a lot of man like usual, some cover 2 stuff that they do some funky disguises with their cover 2 stuff, but then they did a lot of cover 3 stuff when Arizona got into their bunches, into their tight formations that they like to do. Instead, Robert Livingston was living rent free in the heads of the Arizona offensive line, pretty much all day. I I mentioned that Shedeur Sanders was pressured 5 times on 36 dropbacks. Noah Fifita also dropped back 36 times. He was pressured on 19 of them, which is over half is not like you cannot function pressured on more than half of your dropbacks. Sacked 7 times. The thing that stuck out was a lot of the exotic stuff that he was doing early on in the game. The first drive, Arizona had the ball. 2nd and 10, Robert Livingston puts CU in a cover 0 shell with 7 guys walked up on the line of scrimmage. 6 of them come. Levante Bentley dropped out, and Shiloh Sanders was unblocked and got a free shot at Noah Fifita. The next drive, on 2nd and 10 again, CU did the same thing, and Arizona had to call a timeout. So that kind of is a sign right away that their protection rules were being messed with. They weren't really comfortable in their plan to protect the quarterback, and that kind of bared out all day. CU also did some stuff with some 5-man fronts. That was Keaton Wade's first sack, which was on a 3rd down. They just put 5 pass rushers in the game and just put them all in a 3-point stance, and they ran a nice little double loop. Keaton Wade was lined up as a defensive tackle over the guard, and he came unblocked on the stunt, free for a sack. So I liked that. It was a lot of variation from Livingston in this one with his pressures, with his fronts. More than just the traditional 4-man rush, cover 1 man coverage, or sometimes they like to send 5 and play man also, but they were doing some different stuff in this one that I feel like really bothered Arizona. And it didn't feel like Arizona ever really settled in on the offensive line in this one.
Yeah, well-rounded game, and something that I think we both anticipated was going. Colorado had the upper hand in this game, even though Arizona was the at-home favorite. Colorado came in and just completely disrupted them and just blew up their plan on both sides of the ball. And they just didn't have a lot of answers to what Colorado was presenting. And Colorado, well, not finally, but Colorado showed that they are this dominant team that just looks so much better, just like so much better than maybe where they were last year. I know the competition was disparate, but there's just so much more momentum with this team, and that's why I'm pretty optimistic about Cincinnati this weekend, because they've shown their multifaceted offense. They've shown a defensive front that is really formidable and now leads the Big 12 in sacks. And then their secondary is Travis Hunter, Cam, DJ McKinney, and Preston Hodge. Really versatile guys, just from both ends. Super solid team, and they do have a chance for a little Big 12 championship, but this weekend will be very pivotal in whether or not that could be a reality for them. I completely skipped over what I was supposed to do at the beginning of this, so now we're gonna completely pivot unless you have any final notes with Arizona here.
No, go ahead. I honestly forgot also, so go.
I know, it's just I just get into
News
the
portion, news break.
yeah. I'll pivot here. Some recruiting news. Just looked into a lot of different guys last night, and Colorado is doing a lot on the recruiting trail here. 4-star wide receiver Adrian Wilson. I think we kind of saw him pop up yesterday because he decommitted from Arizona State, and he's expected to be in Boulder on Saturday. And shortly after Adrian Wilson decommitted, the Buffs bat signal quickly went out on Twitter, meaning that there might be a commitment there. It's safe to say that there could be, but with all the recruiting that the Buffs are doing and the state of recruiting, you never know what's truly going on. 4-star offensive tackle Carday Smith is taking his 2nd visit to CU. Coach Lohol went and visited him a couple weeks ago at his game, and he's currently committed to USC, but there is some interest there with Carday Smith making these visits and stopping by Boulder. 4-star cornerback Shamar Arnaud, he's committed to USC, but Auburn and Florida State and Colorado are trying to flip him. Really talented corner there. And there's a lot of 4-stars on this list. 4-star athlete Keyshawn Henderson, he's ranked 17th in the 2026 class. He's currently committed to Houston. Houston's not doing very good right now. But SMU, Baylor, Oregon, TCU, and Texas A&M, as well as Colorado, are the main programs trying to flip the Texas prospect. He's currently playing at quarterback, but he's also a phenomenal athlete. hence why he's listed as an athlete. Going down the list here, 4-star 2025 wide receiver Andrew Marsh. He's committed to Michigan, really good program. But Colorado's trying to set up a visit with him, and both Marsh's camp and Colorado are working out a plan for him to visit Colorado. I don't know when, but probably this season. Kind of rewinding to Kansas State, a couple of visitors there. London Merritt, 4-star defensive end. He felt during his visit that Colorado was a really family type of environment. Of course, there was that video of Dion braiding his sister's hair that came out. And when Merritt sat down with Dion, they just talked, and Dion and the position coach, they talked a lot about his versatility. And that's something that is Merritt's calling card, is how are they going to use him in different looks, different areas, and really capitalize on what he brings to the table as a 4-star defensive end. He's currently committed to Ohio State, another really top program, but Colorado's in conversation with a lot of these guys that are committed to the blue bloods of college football. And as we've seen, Colorado knows how to flip a guy or two. Also, another Kansas State visit from 3-star defensive tackle Christian Hudson. He said, well, per the Rivals Network, Colorado made a big impression on Hudson after he visited. And what stood out the most for him were his conversations with Dion and Damian Lewis, and really capitalizing on what he could bring to Colorado and letting him see what his role could look like if he committed to Colorado. He's still currently committed to UCF, but the Buffaloes are definitely in the back of his mind as he decides what college program he's going to pursue. And last one here, 2025 three-star pro-style quarterback Colton Gamino from Illinois. He's currently committed to UCLA, but Colorado is in the mix for him as he plans to take visits to Illinois, Cincinnati, Florida, and Colorado this season. So a lot of work going on in the recruiting trail, and they're trying to pick up guys. And the transfer portal is mostly what Dion picks his guys from, but they can recruit, and they have been recruiting, trying to build for the future here in Colorado. So yeah, a lot of action there. I want to pivot now to Cincinnati and this matchup. I've been really looking forward to this one, but I haven't. I do not like the 8:15 kicks. You like them because you get to watch college football all day. I don't like them because I'm up really late, and it is difficult. But the positive of the 8:15 kick is that it's fun football. You don't really know what to anticipate, and Cincinnati is a team that is really going to bring it, and has been a really surprising squad within the Big 12, as they are projected to finish 14th in the Big 12 during the preseason. But now they are 5-2. Who would have thought? I didn't anticipate that. They've really turned it around. They have a new defensive coordinator who their defense is ranked 101st in FBS, and they've been averaging almost 400 yards per game. But they just held Arizona State, who was previously 5-2, to just 14 points last week. So positives there. I think there's growth within their defense, but special surprise, we have a guest, JT Smith, who is the writer for the Cincinnati site. We brought him onto the podcast today to talk all about the Cincinnati Bearcats and what they're bringing to Boulder. And we are going to throw it to him. And our conversation provided a lot of insight for us and Buff fans here. So first special guest of this season. So pretty cool. We're joined with JT Smith of the Cincinnati Rivals site. Thank you for joining us. We just talked Buffs with him. We'll drop the link to that later, but we broke down what the game's kind of going to look like, provide our analysis on how Colorado's looking, and he is joining us to provide how Cincinnati's looking, which they've kind of been a surprising team, just last year being 3-9, and now this year being 5-2. There's a four-way tie with Texas Tech, Arizona State, Cincinnati, and Colorado are all 5-2. But this game is going to set the edge on who is that better team. And Cincinnati, really effective offense, defense off and on just from an eye test. But JT, when you look at this matchup, what do you think Cincinnati has the upper hand on against the Buffs?
So all right. Thanks for having me on first. So my bad.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, for sure. I almost was rude, but getting into it, I think the Bearcats offensive line is very strong. They have, you see, a lot of people that played a lot of games, even people that are on the bench. I think last week they rotated in 8 guys just to keep people fresh, and it wasn't because somebody was playing bad. They just wanted D'Artagnan Tinsley was coming off an injury, so they were trying to keep his snaps down. He played well. Evan Tangenstall, he can play guard or center, and I think he played about 25 snaps at guard. And then who else was in there? It was somebody playing tackle for a second. My bad. I am drawing a blank.
No worries.
Um,
It's the same
I
over
think no,
here. There's
Philip
so many
Wilder.
guys.
Yeah, Philip Wilder, and DeAndre Buford. I think they were rotating as well. So they have a strong offensive line. So I know the Buffs they have a real good defensive line, especially attacking off the edge. But the Bearcats, I think, can slow that down a little bit. So I think that's one of the things that the Bearcats have an advantage. And I believe the way the Bearcats run the ball will be an advantage because maybe that can slow the game down a little bit. Everybody knows Colorado's high power, and I mean a blind man probably can see that. But if you can slow them down a little bit, maybe make them rush a little bit because the Bearcats are taking off for the 6 minutes off of a drive every time they touch the ball, then maybe that can make them get frustrated. Maybe makes Shador gamble when he shouldn't have to. I mean, he's just such a good playmaker. Maybe make him press a little bit, and hopefully that can be something the Bearcats can use to their advantage.
How do you feel like, and Troy, feel free to chime in if you have any questions, but kind of next question, how do you feel like Brendan Sorsby has been exposing defenses this year? What are his strong suits and what's kind of his play style?
Okay, so if you let him tell it, he's like kind of like Josh Allen light kind of guy. That makes sense. He has a big, strong arm, bigger guy. It's more athletic than you think. But the thing is, he will try to run a linebacker over, and it's something that like Scott Satterfield is kind of trying to have him like pick and choose when he does it because it's like, dude, we need you on the field, but he can make all the throws you need him to make all the reads. I mean, he is a younger player, so sometimes defenses can confuse him. But I mean, if he takes off, he can get he can make that, a play that you thought was going to be a sack. He can get 4 or 5 yards from you're like, oh man, I thought that was going to be a 3 yard or 5 yard sack. Um, and he's just been like a good, positive guy, man. I mean, just like every time you talk to him, he's kind of just like upbeat. Seems like people really rally behind him, and I think that's kind of one of the main reasons the Bearcats are, we're in the position they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big asset for them in the red zone too, the way that uh he runs. I think he leads the team in touchdowns on the ground. I was gonna ask, is that something that they go to exclusively kind of down near the goal line in the red area, or is the design QB run stuff kind of a part of their offense?
So it's a part of the offense. It's just that sometimes, like in the red, like Sorsby's probably going to try to take it. And it's not
Yeah.
like a slight thing at the running backs because Corey Kiner is a monster.
Yeah.
Like the one I think Sorsby scored two against Arizona State. Like Kiner had like this massive run, like maybe a 22 yard run where
Yeah.
he breaks like 3 or 4 tackles and he gets stopped like right at the 1 inch line. And then like Sorsby's in the presser, like I told him like I didn't call that play, my bad. I wanted to hand it off to you. I almost handed it off to you anyways. He was like, I didn't mean to steal your touchdown. Like Mike Allstott back in the day, like if you watched who work done is Mike Allstott used to steal all his touchdowns. But I mean it's a part of the thing, like in the red zone, man. He's just like I think he doesn't mind putting his shoulder down and using his 235 frame to get a touchdown. So it's a welcome problem to have. I think outside the 20s, they're more like, hey, give it to the running back unless it's just a gaping hole or just like somebody makes a wrong read. But then when it gets in the red zone, I think it's just all, hey, whatever's the best option, go for it.
Looking at this defense, they were a really efficient offense this year, 451.4 yards per game. But on defense, they've been allowing 397.3 yards per game. But this team has been really resilient and surprising with only two close losses to Pitt and Texas Tech. I mean, what do you feel like? Which side of the ball? I mean, probably the offense, but when you look at the defense, how do they in any way keep UC in games?
So, okay, that's a good question. So you see the yards, like it's almost 400 yards. I think it was over 400 yards before they played Arizona State in, what was the game before that? Arizona State and UCF. The average has come down. So it's weird. So beginning of the year, I was like, I don't know. It's a new defensive coordinator, new defense, 3-3-5. Most people have a 3-3-5, where it's three down linemen, three linebackers, and you got two corners, no, three corners. So you got your outside corners and a slot corner and two safeties, right? That's the normal 3-3-5. Not for the Bearcats. The Bearcats, three down linemen, three linebackers. You got two corners, three safeties. So the outside safeties, the middle safety is called the star. Outside safeties, they kind of have to have that ability to cover, because they're going to be sometimes on islands, or they're going to be in a zone where they're going to have to carry the deep ball. So I got long-winded to say this. They've been real opportunistic. So the first, I think, 3 or 4 games, they got an interception on the first drive in the red zone, like every game. You can't live off that, right? Because it's not always going to happen. But it kind of gives, what it does is it starts to give where everybody's like, all right, I want to make a play. All right, we're in the red zone. Let's tighten up. I think they only have 3 or 4 interceptions, but I think they lead the Big 12 in forced fumbles. So they have like 9 forced fumbles, and that's been their calling card. And I think everybody's starting to get more comfortable in the actual defense as well. So that's helping tighten it up as well. So it's kind of a mixture. They don't have like, I don't know who has like a real good defense. Shoot, Michigan. I don't know. Their offense
Ohio
is so
State.
bad. Maybe defense. Ohio State.
Penn State.
They don't have
They're
like
not
Ohio
Penn State.
Yeah, they're not going to hold a team down. Oh, they have been, but they're not going to hold a high-powered offense to 10 points or 14 points. But they might keep them in the mid to high 20s. You know what I mean? Because they're such a playmaking group, and they can get to after the quarterback pretty well too. So it's kind of like a bend but don't break, but it's been getting better. They've been doing less bending as of the last couple of weeks.
Kind of similar. There's Colorado and UC are very aligned this year just with the changes. And you mentioned they brought in a new defensive coordinator. Last year, Colorado's defensive coordinator, Charles Kelly, he came from Alabama, kind of implemented a Alabama-centric system defense, and it's kind of complicated. And you can kind of see the players struggle with these concepts, but Robert Livingston is running more individualized strength style system, and it is just so dramatic, the change. And because Colorado had the worst defense in FBS last year, and now they are kind of in the middle of the pack, but they've been a really big highlight of this team and such a dramatic change from what it looked like last year. When you look at UC's new defensive coordinator, how do you feel like he's changed the defense for the better or maybe for the worse?
Honestly, I guess for the better. I guess they're making more plays, but I feel like it's kind of a twofold question, because they had people that were there from the old regime, like, it was a new defensive coordinator last year too. So
Oh,
the thing was more so the players. I think when Fickle left and went to Wisconsin, you have this divide, right? Like you got some people. There's still some people that play with Fickle that are still on the current team, but like when stuff went awry, when they saw it wasn't their same leader there, they were more like headbutting each other. Besides like trying to work with each other to make it work, and it was kind of like walking time bomb, where I think now the people that have stayed, they've bought in, and then the people they've brought in is like, hey, we're here to try to win. And I think Tyson Veit, who's the new defensive coordinator, he's kind of reaped the benefit of that as well. So I think he's done a good job of like getting better each week. Because at first I thought like, man, I think we played against Townsend and they were doing whatever they wanted a little bit too much against us, and it's like, man, I don't know if we can stop a high school team right now. And then, you go against Pitt, you kind of you start off, you look like gangbusters, and then kind of just really can't adjust. So it looked like, you lose that game because they understood like, hey, we can get outside the pocket, buy some time. They're only sending three. Somebody's going to be open as soon as I either can run if nobody spots me, or I'm going to be able to get in the middle of the field because it's one-on-one and everybody's in the zone and it's hard to guard somebody for 80 seconds, right? So that's what makes that pick game just hurt so much. And then to see who they played, their first Big 12 game was against Houston, and Houston really can't throw, but you saw like a big improvement because they went from like Pitt doing whatever they wanted to in the second half to the Bearcats to like UC like holding Houston to a donut, and then you get this tough test of Texas Tech where you think like, man, maybe they did run over them, like not run all over them, but they scored. I mean, ran a lot of. I mean, Taj Brooks almost had 20 yards, but you didn't know if the Bearcats were going to be able to match them, and they were able to, even though they lost. So it's kind of been like every week you feel like Tyson has gotten better at, and the players have got more comfortable in the scheme.
Yeah, that's similarly with Colorado too. It's just like up and down. What are they going to look like this week? But now it's in that mid-season form to where Robert Livingston has done an excellent job in shaping this defense, and he's a first-time play caller too. So there's questions on what that could potentially look like. And Troy and I have been really impressed with what Livingston has done with this defense that went from worse to now not as bad. So improvement. Just one last question. So you'll be watching this game in UC. What is your score prediction? What do you think is going to get Cincinnati that edge and maybe potentially that win?
Okay, so I think they'll pull out. I mean, both teams are 5-2, so I guess it wouldn't be technically an upset, but I'm pretty sure Colorado. I haven't looked on the betting lines, but I'm pretty sure they're a favorite. They're at home, which they should be. So I think for the Bearcats to pull off the upset, they have to win or break even in the turnover battle. So I know Shedeur Sanders has done a great job of not giving the ball away to the opposing team. Swordsby has been, but the last few weeks he has given it up. So I can't remember if he had any turnovers last week or not, but I feel like against UCF he had a few. So he's still low. He still has a real good touchdown to interception ratio, but Bearcats have to, at least break even on that. Keep him upright. I mean, with a team like Colorado is probably going to get a sack or two. They can't have it where he can't make his reads because you guys defensive ends or defensive tackles are in his face, where he can't make a step up and throw. So that's going to be the key. And I think they have to get Shedeur where he has to rush. We got to do what I say that Cincinnati can't have happen. They have to do the same to Shedeur because you guys have even more weapons at the wide receiver position than the Bearcats. So they have to they got to make him get off his spot, make him scramble some and be able to get him down because we know Shedeur, when he scrambles, he's not always scrambling to run and get 10 yards. He's scrambling for somebody to free opening, take a 30-yard play. So with somebody with his arm talent and his skill, they have to get him down and they have to get him where he's rushed no matter what. Like even if he's making completions, they got to have him where he's not able to get to a second read because he doesn't have time to get the second read. So, and maybe we can get like a deflected ball or something, or run it when they do run the ball, maybe the running back, because they don't run the ball that much, he puts it on the ground or something like that. So that's what they have to do for them to pull off the upset. And the kicking game, when they get field goals, we gotta knock them down if they're easy field goals. So I'm going with the upset. Then I think I go 35, 31, 34, 31. Was that what I text you? I'm not going to change. I'm going to keep it there. Did I go 34, 31?
Yeah, let me see.
All right. I want to stay true to that.
35-31 Colorado.
Okay, 35-31. So I'm going with that with the upset. And that's how I picture, Saturday going. So
yeah,
it's gonna be... y'all can bash me if y'all want. It's cool.
No, I wouldn't do that to you. We just met you.
Yeah.
It's going to be quite a battle between these two teams, and I think both of us are looking for complete games because, at least when I entered the Big 12, I just didn't know a lot about the landscape and what these teams truly looked like. So I've been learning a lot about, when I saw Cincinnati and they were projected to finish 14th in the conference, it's like, Cincinnati, that's going to be fine. But now that we've reached this point of the season, it's like, oh, Cincinnati, like you can't mess around with Cincinnati this time. And sometimes Colorado has a tendency to get themselves in compromising positions, and essentially that won't happen. But with the scope of this game, with what Cincinnati's presenting, with what Colorado has, it's going to be an interesting one because it's at 8:15, and any kick that is that late, something crazy always happens. So we're going to anticipate for that, and it's going to be a fun one in Boulder. But thank you so much for joining us today. It was great talking to you. It was great meeting you. And yeah, I think we'll probably reconvene. I'll send you a text when the Buffs go up 10 points against Cincinnati. We'll see.
Uh-oh. All right. Oh, so it's gonna be. I'll be ready. I'll be ready. So don't block me. So
No, I will.
We'll be talking stuff. We got some friendly fire. It's cool. It's all good.
And we
Don't
have
block me.
basketball season coming up too. So Cincinnati's gonna.
Oh yeah, I'm not worried about basketball.
Yeah.
I'm not worried. This game, I'm a little antsy, but
Same.
basketball, I think we'll be all right. Unless we play y'all out in Colorado, who knows? We play at Fifth Third, I think should be all right. The y'all just miraculously get it. We already talked about this. So,
Yeah.
if everybody comes together, who knows, man? You might have the right transfers, and it just it works out. It's a magical season. So
Yeah. That's what we hope.
yeah.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, we'll talk to you later, and thanks for coming on the pod.
Oh, no
Thanks,
problem. You'll
JT.
have a good one.
Great having JT Smith on. I learned a lot from that conversation. I haven't really watched Cincinnati a lot this season, but I know they've been really productive and one of the surprising teams in the conference. As you see Cincinnati, what really stands out to you, and what could be a concern for Colorado heading into this matchup?
Yeah, JT hit on it. But the offensive line for Cincinnati's been really, really good. It's going to be a challenge for the CU front seven, and both on the ground and through the air. Cincinnati does a lot of their stuff, especially their run game stuff. They do a lot of pistol, which allows the running game to be really downhill, really straight at you. And that's, I think, something that CU has struggled a little bit more with, that kind of style of running game. Now, I don't think that they're going to run all over CU, but like Kansas State had more of a downhill style. Nebraska had more of a downhill style, whereas a team like UCF was more horizontal, a lot of option stuff. And I think that CU has done a lot better against that. So I do think it'll be a challenge for CU to slow down Cincinnati on the ground, as well as the quarterback run stuff, which he also hit on. Brennan Sorsby can scramble. They do some design run stuff for him in the red zone. I think that can be a problem. And in pass protection, Brandon Sorsby, I mentioned Shador earlier, was pressured 5 times out of 36 dropbacks. Brandon Sorsby was pressured last week twice on 35 dropbacks. I refreshed my page 3 times. I swear this is a thing. It is a really, really incredible stat. So they've been playing really good football up front. They do a lot of play action in the passing game off of their run game. So I think if CU can slow down the run, that will make it tougher for Cincinnati to throw the ball. It'll take away a big diet of what they like to do. I think they had 15 of those 35 dropbacks last week were play action, which is a pretty big chunk. So I think that'll be difficult for CU. It'll be tough to force turnovers. Sorsby's been playing good football, protecting the football. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year. Defensively, I don't. In the passing game, I think CU is going to have a lot of success. It's another team that doesn't really blitz a ton. They don't blitz. They blitz more than Arizona did last week, but it's another team that plays a lot of base, a lot of Shador is going to probably have time to sit back and operate as long as the CU offensive line continues to play pretty well. Running the ball is going to be more difficult, I think, for the Buffs in this one. I've talked about this before, but Cincinnati's another 3-3-5 team, another 3-3 stack team, which is weird that they have so many of them on the schedule. It really is. It's an odd coincidence that they have so many 3-3 teams, but those are the teams that CU's really struggled to run the ball against. They couldn't run the ball against Nebraska. They couldn't run the ball against Kansas State. The 4-man front teams like Arizona, UCF, CU has been able to do that, but they struggle in the run game getting up to the second level, and they struggle. I think they struggle with nose tackles. It's harder to double team Hank Zelinskas becomes the primary guy on that. They can double team him still, obviously, but I think they just struggle with the 3-man front with a nose tackle, and then they struggle climbing up to linebackers. And when there's 3 of them, like there are in the 3-3-5, and not 2, like when a team's in a traditional nickel with a 4-man front, I think that the linebackers are able to be really disruptive against CU in the running game. So that's another thing to watch in this one. It is crazy that they've played so many of those 3 teams, but so I do think running the ball is going to be hard. We'll see if Isaiah Augusta, if he didn't start in either of those games against Kansas State or against Nebraska. So we'll see. Maybe he has more success, but that's something that I'm looking for. But on offense, I do think CU will be able to throw the ball.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Colorado finding success in the pass game, which they always defer to, but this is a matchup just with Cincinnati's secondary and what they present, and Colorado's healthy starting 4 wide receivers, maintaining a clean pocket. Even if Shador doesn't, he usually finds a way. The pressure there, it's going to be another battle in the trenches, as you mentioned, with that 3-man front and figuring out how to open holes for the running backs and create some plays. But as we've seen, just as Colorado team, they've really developed into quite a formidable program on both sides of the ball. Sometimes there are those inconsistencies with the offensive line, but what we've seen from the defense throughout these 7 games is a defense that can force takeaways, apply pressure, and keep star playmakers out of the game. So if they can do all those things, as we mentioned, all the positive things that you need to do in football, they have a really, really good chance of beating Cincinnati. But Cincinnati's been a really stout team with only 2 close losses to Pitt, who is really good this year, and Texas Tech, who's at the top of the conference. Well, actually, no, they're 5-2. Everyone is 5. Texas Tech.
It's undefeated.
Yeah. So this is gonna be one of those pivotal matchups where it definitely is the kind of ticker on what this postseason is potentially going to look like, and a very exciting one in Boulder. We already said our score predictions, and yeah, we're going to be locked in for a late one, everyone. Drink your coffee, energy drinks, anything you need to get through the game. I usually defer the halftime hot dog. Probably eat before. We'll see. The eating schedule of the late game, I'm like dinner, but yeah, it should be an exciting one. I'm going to stop rambling and let everyone get on with their days, and provided all the football analysis we could possibly give for this week. And we are looking forward to talk to you next week during the bye week, and we'll have some basketball stuff for next week. Thanks, guys. See you later. Hey, you got the confetti.
Hey.